This week's episode of Shower Thoughts is sponsored by Mint Mobile. You know what doesn't belong in your epic summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. That's why I made the switch to Mint Mobile. And for a limited time, Mint Mobile is offering 3 months of unlimited premium wireless service for $15 a month on the nation's largest 5G network. I love Mint Mobile because I am addicted to my phone. And I like watching videos when I'm in the boonies, visiting friends at high speeds. And with Mint Mobile, I now can. Couldn't do that with my previous service provider. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/shower. That's mintmobile.com/shower. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan, taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Hi guys, welcome back. This is Shower Thoughts with Sarah Schauer, a podcast for left and right brainers, middle brainers, anyone with some nerve, anyone who's been shocked recently. But this is the last part of how to build trust. We started off with how to build self-trust and then trust. And I do believe we had our guest interview episode go out, so that kind of broke up the flow, but it was so fun to interview Allison Raskin. But this is the final part of how to build self-trust, just some wrapping up points. So please listen to the first 2 episodes on this. I guess you could get just like the general vibes of it. But we've started off with self-trust and then trust. And then this is like other things to consider when it comes to trust, which is risk and more risk analysis. This will get more statistics. And I know everyone's like, oh my God, you did like ecology, you did all these different, so now I'm jumping over to statistics, and it's just what I do. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Before we get into that, what's going on with me? Because this is Shower Thoughts. We warm up. Shower Thoughts, again, are mundane musings, kind of putting your thoughts together. What has happened this past week? Well, I'm having other gay things happen. Good gay things and weird gay things. And you're like, interesting. Their good gay things are like separate gay things. And then the weird gay things are other separate gay things. So it's like, thankfully they're not combined. But yeah. Yesterday I got this. Well, I didn't get this. Someone sent me a text message of a text that they got that was so manipulative. I literally had to pause after reading the text, and then I read the entire book, read the entire book, Lying, Moral Choice in Public and Private Life. And that's a pretty hefty book. But when you're so baffled by someone's manipulation tactic that you're like, I have to read a book. You know what I mean? And basically what was happening was a whole bunch of paltering, which is not a lie by omission. It's like a purposefully misleading truth. It's where someone states the truth, but it's not quite exactly relevant, or it's to misdirect you to the crux of the matter. I'm trying to think of an example of paltering, but the only example that's coming to mind is what they texted, and that would be it's not my conversation to talk about. Anyway, yeah. I did want to talk about different types of lying. I was talking to my friend about, a potential upcoming episode. And I think lying in general is such a fun follow-up to trust, because lying does break trust, and there's so many different types of lies. There's lies of commission, lies by omission, there's paltering, there's intentional deceit, there's so many different layers. And I have talked about lying in the past. Oh yeah, I have touched on this. A lot of people think there's only white lies, but there's 4 main colors of lies, and white lies is the most common, and then there's red lies, gray lies, and black lies. And the thing is the lies depend on who you're lying to, yourself or others, and if there's malicious intent or it's accidental. Actually, this is gonna completely destroy me if I do not. 4 colors of lies. This is actually I'm gonna say that yes. So there is 2 dimensions, and there's 4 colors, and they're subdivided into 2 categories. So this is different types of lies. So how it affects me by this website that I'll link, the forces of evolution may naturally push us towards self-preservation, especially when we feel threatened. When basic needs seem at risk, we hence become inclined to lie in order to protect ourselves. We also lie to get less basic needs, for example, to fulfill our personal or received goals. Lying always causes values conflicts, and selfish lies cause even greater dissonance. This hence tends to reduce self as a primary reason for lying. So anyway, the 4 colors of lies, and this will be linked below, is on the on the x-axis is how it affects others, and then on the y-axis is how it affects me. Nope, that's switched. Nope. Okay. Anyway, so a black lie is other people lose out in some way, but I get positive benefit. A red lie is my healthcare is calling me. They're going to be like, I don't want to upgrade my insurance. Okay, a red lie is others lose out in some way and I lose out in some way. Why would you do a red lie where other people lose out and you also lose out? It's mainly like lies to self. I think they could be, there's like 4 Ds. I think it's considered a delusional type of lie where it's like, that girl, Pearl, who's like kind of anti-feminist. She keeps lying about like feminism and, a woman's role and all this stuff. And she herself is a woman. So like her lie is hurting her, and it's also others are losing out because people are spreading those lies. And then gray lies is others get positive benefit and I get positive benefit. And a white lie is others get positive benefit and I lose out in some way. So a gray lie, others get positive benefit, I get positive benefit. I guess the main example of a gray lie would be giving someone an alibi when they weren't really with you. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. Molly was with me last night. She definitely was not at the bar. And so it's, I guess other people do lose out. But depending on who you're lying to, if you're lying to the government and, Molly didn't actually hurt anyone, it really depends on the classification of lies. But so that would be a fun, interesting podcast episode on different types of lies. I think it's delusional, duplicitous, demoralizing, and this is going to kill me. Delusional, duplicitous, demoralizing, lies. There's one more. Guys. There's one more. Da 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 da. Deceitful is lying about the facts to others. Duplicitous is lying about your values to others. Delusional is lying about the facts to themselves. And demoralized is lying about your values to yourself. So yeah, there's like so many different intersections of lying and like different types of lying. So to say that lying blanket, like general, is like bad is not as nuanced, especially when there's like aspects of self-preservation involved, which the article originally mentioned. If I'm in an Uber and I the driver is like, I hate women and I voted against them. If I disagree with this person, I take a stance right now. There is a strong case he could lash out and pull over and beat me up or worse. So I'm going to be like, yeah, I don't like women either. I think that, we belong in the kitchen. I don't even know why I'm in a car right now. well, I shouldn't be without my husband, my male suitor. You know what I mean? So yeah, the lying, anyway. So this is how to build trust. But yeah, my week has been going great other than that. I guess reading a really manipulative text message, the silver lining is that I did speed read an entire book. And, it felt good. I was like, damn, I really hate everything that they said. But fuck, this book was good. So I'm going to link that below too, because you guys are going to ask me. Also, I'm outlining my book club. I have 4 main books that I kind of want selected and then I want people to choose from. But I think it's so cool because I love different areas of study. And yes, they would be on nonfiction. The first book would be Life in 3 Dimensions. I mentioned that before. It's like applied math and emotional health. And then there is crud, the sex lives of medieval women, which is women's history and sexual well-being. And then there's, you guys are like, we don't need all of them right now, but I need to tell you. And you're like, you should have came prepared. Yeah, the spirit catches you and you fall down. Every single person who loves sociology is like, that's our shit. Like, I mean, that is the sociology book. But it's a Hmong child, her American doctors, and the collision of two cultures, and then there's being ecological, which is ecology and philosophy. So they kind of cover like different quadrants of study. I think that they're so fun. I love sociology. I love applied math. I love philosophical discussions, especially when it comes to incorporating the environment, because not a lot of people's personal philosophy incorporates like the environment. It really doesn't. I mean, the farthest people usually go is like, I don't litter or I recycle. And even then they're like kind of flexible with it. And yeah, and then I like the sex lives of medieval women one. I kind of hesitate to read with my audience because the thing is I know that you guys are really smart and I love that about you all. And you pay attention to the fine print. But like in the beginning of that book, it says, a lot of these recipes and a lot of these things should never be done or consumed by any person. It says like, you will die if you do some of these things, you know, like this is medieval sort of way. And I know that I'm going to say that. I'm going to be like, guys, and I know that all of you are going to be like, so yeah, I want to keep living. There's going to be one person who's like, let me try to put that up and I'll be like, oh, I did this somehow. I caused this. So I don't think I'm going to start with that one. But I think I'm going to go with Fable as the book club place. Everyone keeps recommending Fable for their book club. And so I'm but a sheep. And so I'm going to probably start it on Fable. I want to do that this week. And so that's what's going on with me. And we're going to start building self-trust and trust. And I hope that you guys enjoyed the last couple episodes. I enjoyed talking about them. I feel like I talk at length, but that's also why I have a podcast. It's interesting. I don't want to be like, this job is hard, but talking for an hour straight about something when it's not yourself is actually quite difficult. And that's not to say like, oh, I want to talk about myself. It's that, you know, I know my lore through and through. Like talking about something else for an hour is just, it's exhausting, but it's also so liberating, so fun. All right. We're going to go to propensity to trust and risk aversion, differential roles in the trust process. So just so we are all on the same page, because some of you will refuse to listen to the previous episodes, and I totally understand that. You don't want to. You don't have the time. That's not who you are. I get it. So in the first part, we talked about like, oh God, actually, this is so much research. Anyway, the last part, we talked about the neural correlates of trust, you know, the importance of the paracingulate cortex involved in trust, which is like, you know, you're supposed to infer another person's intentions to predict subsequent behavior. And that region of the brain, the anterior cingulate cortex, is considered to play a crucial role in cognitive and affective regulation. So cognitive functions, including theory of mind, social interactions, and cognitive load. So cognitive division of labor, you can't really trust someone that well if you cannot, you know, divide up like even just mental labor. If you have to think for other people, if you constantly have to be telling them what to do, even if it like, especially if it's routine maintenance sort of things, like if you have to tell your partner, hey, can you unload the dishwasher? It's your day. Or, hey, can you clean up the bedroom? It's your day. Then you're not sharing cognitive load. You are being their manager. And then also affective regulation is if you have to manage someone else's emotions, you know, more walk on eggshells, and like every time you speak your mind, they kind of lash out at you, and they can't even seem to respond to just what you're saying, then it's going to be very hard to build a trusting relationship, because now it's 1v1 and we're not like a team, you know, we're not co-regulating in this moment. I'm kind of regulating you, balancing you out. And so it's kind of hard to build trust. They also said that I also went over how social games are better than social, social icebreakers. So social games play to build trust. The thing is trust is a process, right? So it means that it's like continuous or ongoing. So to be trustworthy, you kind of need to maintain a steady level of consistent trust throughout the entirety of your relationship, or, really build it and show like an active effort. And so trust is not like a destination. It is very much a journey. And so you're supposed to, it's more like a rate. It is a rate. It's a frequency. So whenever someone is like, oh, you don't do or do not trust me, it's like, well, are you talking about one singular event? How you reacted to this? Because it's kind of a continuum. And so I'm kind of aggregating all points together, and we're going to talk about, standard distribution and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anyway, social games, play, thriving, curiosity, creativity, structured play. I talked about, I like being playful. I like bantering with people. I like riffing. However, a lot of people, when they quote unquote joke with others, they just kind of tear them to shreds. However, bantering, right, or anyone who's like a comedian or has done like a roast, the reason why roasts work is because they all know each other, right? They're all like friends. They've all like been to each other's shows. They've like filled in spots. They've gotten them shows, right? So it wouldn't work if they were all strangers, because now you're just making fun of someone's like looks or something, and there's no assumed connection or like respecting of things. Like the reason why these comedians can go on stage and be like, Kevin Hart, you're like 5 feet shorter than everyone else, is because they are coworkers and friends, so they can say that, and there's like trust and respect established. So yeah, play is like structured fun. Yeah, it has to have structure, or else it's kind of just chaos, and there's no real. The thing is trust also requires like predictability. That's why I'm going to talk about risk aversion. You have to be able to predict, and structure and rules does give someone some level of prediction and stuff like that. So I also talked about, contingent trust through the lens of like a legal sort of lens, and, how you divide up assets. But the thing is if you're both adults, and one of you is not the designated caretaker, then that is probably best to be avoided or very mindful of. And so then I also touched on, you're like, Sarah, this is just a review. Yes, because some of you are going to refuse, and you're going to be like, this is, but you didn't want to listen. And okay. I also talked about writing a personal constitution. And the thing is your personal constitution is your principles, like how you are going to predictably react. Like, what are your laws? I do not allow this, or like I allow this, and if this happens, I will react in this way, right? And you need to enforce your laws. You need to also abide by your own laws. You can't just apply them to other people. That is the definition of a tyrant. Or we could talk about the different types of perfectionism. There's self-oriented perfectionism. It's where you hold yourself to an unnaturally high standard. And then there's socially prescribed perfectionism. It's where your culture, your community, it kind of holds you to a very high standard. Like women are supposed to give and give and give and give, and that's socially prescribed. And then there's other oriented perfectionism, where you have very high standards for other people that you do not hold for yourself. And that's where you enter the dark triad of personality traits, which is psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism. And it's not to say that you can be clinically diagnosed with all three. I mean, you could, if you're evaluated by a licensed professional, and they do that. But if you hold other people to standards that you yourself do not reach, you are not building trust with anyone, and you don't become trustworthy. Also, perfectionism is kind of a creation of white supremacy. The thing is, it's only really achievable for people who can fit within the mold created by society that would be considered perfect, and everyone else would fall outside that range. And it's where you find, imposter syndrome, people who are, like women of color, or just like women in general in any sort of work environment. You feel like you're an imposter and you shouldn't be here. Well, the original environment, who it was made for was not you, right? And so like you are more than qualified. Your credentials, like your degrees, all this stuff, your professionalism, all this, whatever, you belong. However, it's the people, you fall outside the range. And the thing is when it comes to like kind of arbitrary divisions of, characteristics, it's like exclusionary things are meant to be very constricting and limiting. So that's suppression, oppression. But yeah, sorry, it's not funny. It's like, yeah, that's the intent. Anyway.
You know what doesn't belong in your epic summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. While you're planning beach trips, barbecues, and 3-day weekends, your wireless bill should be the last thing holding you back. That's why I made the switch to Mint Mobile. With Mint, you can get the coverage and speed you're used to, but for way less money. And for a limited time, Mint Mobile is offering 3 months of unlimited premium wireless service for $15 a month. And so while your friends are sweating over data overages and surprise charges, you'll be chilling. Literally and financially. I love Mint Mobile because I'm addicted to my phone, and I like watching videos when I'm in the boonies, visiting friends at high speeds. And with Mint Mobile, I now can. Couldn't do that with my previous service provider. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/shower. That's mintmobile.com/shower. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan, taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
So when you outline your personal constitution, you should do the sentimental and then kind of like the work interpretation of it. Now, when I talked about how your brain indexes abstract thought, right? We have label, we have relation to self, which is a second thing, internal, external. And you could also go, you know what? Okay. You have label. And then it branches off into internal, external relation to self. And then it branches off in another direction to the social context. And so you could also kind of map that exactly over symbolic logic, which is symbolic logic is how your brain is going to index abstract thoughts. So it would make sense that these are the same, which would go label, and then it would branch off to truth and validity. And then beneath it is going to be proof and validity. And truth and validity in relation to internal, external relation to self is going to be your beliefs, right? And beliefs are internal. Yeah. And then external would be like cause and effect. And so then social context, which is which has a contextual nature, right? So that's going to be proof, right? Repeatability. This is true within reality. And then so things that are valid and true in the internal, external relationship, it's like it's things that you care about. And then proof and validity is things that are true in our current reality. And I know people who are like deeply philosophical or like physics people are going to be like, well, time isn't real. And I'll be like, guys, please, you understand when I'm just our current understanding of how the world is working. Time is like so wild. You guys should read Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. Such a good book. Holy crap. Or you know what? That one's a good one. Start with that one. If you don't know anything about like time, that's really cool. Anywho, so then you divide by sentimental and work values. And again, everyone's listening to this like so work values are like kind of the capitalist system of measuring like trustworthiness and ability. And now the thing is when it comes to accessibility, I'm not saying that like you need to measure yourself against, people who are completely able-bodied and, maybe have the stamina or the energy levels. Like you're measuring yourself against someone else and you're like, oh, I'm not as valuable relative to this person. No, it's, like how you work or how you move and like what's the mechanics of your day, like the structure that you provide to someone's life. Like you can reliably expect me to, do this within the household, whether it be like just to, hey guys, are we all cleaning up today? Or we kind of just keep, ignoring the mess that I see on the floor? Like that's sort of like, it's tangible, viewable work, right? And it doesn't have to, or it doesn't have to be actually tangible. It could be intangible, which is just things that are in your brain because that's still, you're doing work, right? It's cognitive load. And then there's sentimental values, which is like what this means to you. And they're not, it's like belonging, respect, safety, acceptance, friendship, harmony, trust, commitment, fairness, structure, joy. Financial stability would kind of more work value, I guess. Success, community. I guess like maybe when it comes to sentimental value, like financial stability, it's just like just the ability, what it means to me to be financially stable is just to live comfortably and not have to worry about where my next paycheck is coming from. And when I'm establishing a relationship with someone, I'm at the point in my life where I do want someone who is a bit more financially stable. You don't have to be like, totally solid on 2 feet, but you need to have a strong sense of direction at this point. Because I do as well. And, when it comes to building a relationship, you want like desires, intentions, beliefs, character kind of to be somewhat aligned to make it a collaborative thing as opposed to competitive or, someone more relying on you to take care of them, which, is not bad as long as it's a symbiotic relationship and it's not parasitic like I discussed. But yeah, I discussed, you should outline your own personal constitution because a lot of us, when we were raised, our parents were not accredited teachers at all. Like a lot of people feel like, oh yeah, I didn't receive love from my parents, and you're under the assumption that that's the only thing you didn't receive. And so you're like, that's why it feels so massive, right? It feels like a massive hole in my heart. That massive hole is not just love. It is belonging, respect, safety, acceptance, friendship, harmony, trust, commitment, like fairness, structure, joy, financial stability, success, community, right? Like your parents, if they were like shoddy teachers, they also didn't teach you that, or they mislabeled that, or they used you to process their emotions, or they used you to think for them, right? Like I said in the beginning, for trust you really need effective regulation, like mutual effective regulation. And the thing is if your parents used you to regulate their emotions, there's no way that you could have built a trusting relationship with them because they're taking all their anger out on you and you're now having to regulate that. I remember, being a middle child is hard. I think I was like the peacekeeper when I did kind of go out of my room, but I eventually just kind of, and this is not like, I'm sorry if this is traumatic, but like just trying to make people laugh. I could tell when my dad's getting agitated and I was like, oh shit. And I would try to just like make them laugh and calm everyone down, or sometimes provoke him. So, and then mom is like the perpetual victim. So just kind of like agreeing with everything she says. At a certain point, there's like no point in arguing, and damn, did my siblings try. But there was, I wanted to tell them there's quite literally no point in arguing with either. So you can't build a trusting relationship. It's not just love, right? If you're, regulating your parents' emotions as a child, right? Like, and they're just draining you as a resource. So there's no love there. There's no trust, right? Or cognitive load, right? And it's one thing to give, children chores, but like, it's another thing to like make them think for you. Like I know a lot of parents, it is a culture of isolation. So there is, I feel for them, but also like a lot of times parents are only friends with their kids, especially if your parents like maybe dating or, there may be like some sort of separation where your parents just kind of like run stuff by you and get your honest opinion as a 13-year-old. And you're like, well, I don't know. Like when my mom was deployed, like my dad was just needed some help. They're very smart people, but like it's hard to like trust an adult when you're thinking and feeling for them, So there's like so many things missing, and belonging. I'm just gonna talk about myself and then I'll get to it because the thing is I'm wrapping up the episode anyway. Belonging. Yeah, parents' love, very conditional. If it's conditional, if you feel like you don't belong, if you feel like you could mess up at anything, you could say something wrong, and then there's no hope for love, trust, belonging, right? Respect. If your parents are, you tell your parents a secret, or you leave your diary out. Like I did make the mistake of doing a couple times, and then they ground you, or they have your aunt take away your phone because you're at summer camp and she's there. There's no opportunity to build respect either. So belonging, respect, safety as well. If they endangered your safety, no chance to add that. Acceptance, again, if their love was very conditional, if they just didn't accept your truths, if they didn't believe anything that you said, if you feel uncomfortable around someone or you feel uncomfortable doing something and they don't take it at face value, they're not, validating your truth. And the thing is why I talked about, how your brain indexes abstract thought, like truth, right? And it goes internal, external relation to self, right? And so that in symbolic logic would be validity and truth, right? Which is subjective truth as well, like internal. And so I always talk about emotions are contagious. A lot of people can't validate your feelings, and that's not necessarily true. Okay. The thing is emotions are contagious. You can share contagion, right? Like if I can laugh and you guys can laugh, right? We are literally sharing emotion. If it's genuine, deep laughter, right? I did an episode on this, right? If I'm crying, right, and I'm telling you what I'm crying about and you care about me, you feel for me, like you are starting to take on my emotions and you hear and you feel and you see what it's doing to me, right? And so that's where empathy comes in. You can validate other people's feelings and say, hey, these are real, just like off face value. But you can also, if you experience empathy, right, and you can witness someone suffering before your eyes, you can say like, what you're experiencing, this is true, right? And so if anyone who's ever like questioned, are these feelings valid? And your parents always saw you crying and they're like, stop fucking crying. Well, I'll give you something to cry about. Like they just were basically saying, this is not valid, right? This is not real. Your problems aren't real, okay? So again, if they invalidated you like that, acceptance off the table. Friendship, were you actually friends with them? If genuinely, this like barely takes anything. If your parents were your friends, would you keep them long? And I know a lot of you are blessed with incredible parents, and I really love that for you. But most of us would say straight up no. And then harmony is like, harmony is weird. Well, actually, this is where cognitive dissonance comes in. So harmony is when I talked about, validity and truth, and then validity and proof. When it comes to validity and proof, if something is valid and it's been proven, it is logically sound, right? And so when it comes, that means, there's harmony, right? The truths and the valid truths line up with the valid proofs, right? So it's harmonious, right? Internal and external states are aligned, right? Like they make logical sense, you accept them, you move on to the next thing. However, if someone is constantly negating your feelings, right? Or someone is completely ignoring the context of the situation and they're only talking about their feelings, then that's going to be disharmonious, right? That's going to be cognitive dissonance. It's where there's the truth and the proof of the situation are not aligning, right? The internal feelings are not aligning with the outside world or the other person. So if that constantly happened, then there's no opportunity for harmony. So I'm just showing you about it's not just love that was missing. It was almost everything. So when you're like, what is this void in my heart? It's not, and the thing is, I already talked about in the first episode, you're not incapable of love. Truly, it was the service provider, your modem and your router work. However, it's so many things that don't work. And then there's commitment. Did your parents say what they were going to do? Did they follow through? Some of them did. Some of them really hated it. Fairness, your parents are your first oppressors. And, if they're always constantly accusing you of wrongdoing, however, they're also acting as a judge, that means they're both the plaintiff and the judge. And in any sort of legal system, that is clear. The judge would have been recused, dismissed. There's no way so that's not fair. Structure, if your parents did not tell you the rules or they just punished you at random, or then there was no structure. Joy, the thing is joy, happiness must be pursued. And if they're using you as a fuel source, they're just kind of feeding off of you. And yeah, they're shutting you down where it's like, stop. Anyway, so I'm saying a lot of these are missing. So it doesn't mean, it's not to say you're broken and you can't fix all these things. I think it's just, like I said, with labeling things, you and your parents not being accredited teachers, you need to really go through and relabel what your parents taught you, okay? A lot of people have completely mislabeled belonging, respect, safety, acceptance, friendship, harmony, trust, commitment, fairness, structure, joy. Like, a lot of people who were like hit as a kid, they're like, oh, I turned out just fine. Fine has been mislabeled. No, you are traumatized, right? Like, so you really need to go through and edit what the word your parents taught you, that vocab word, and then do internal, external, where it is, like, is it inside or is it, outside, relation to self, and then what it means in the larger social context in your community or your friend group, right? And, just kind of establish some principles, some ground rules so you get structure, right? And then you can get playful with it. The thing is rules do add like firmness and structure, but they're not totally confining. It's like soccer, right? Soccer has rules, but you can still play soccer even though it's structured. Yeah. Totally unstructured. I guess then you could pivot into gambling where you do things of completely random chance, which is like slots. And at a certain point, that's not fun, and it does become addicting. Actually, all gambling can really become addicting, but what has more structure would be like games of psychology, which would include like blackjack or poker or anything with a other humans playing. Yeah, so that has more structure. So, I did have this article that I wanted to touch on. I know a lot of you have been deeply hurt throughout the entirety of your lives. And I know some of us have adopted a more cynical view of the world. However, like what I talked about with corollary discharge, right? What you expect, if you have negative expectations, right? With corollary discharge, your brain is going to kind of supplement the incoming stimuli with the negative stimuli that you've already experienced, right? If you predict that it's going to be negative stimuli is going to cancel out the incoming stimuli in an attempt to save energy, right? And so if you have negative expectations with everything, then you're going to have, like, if your brain has previously stored associations with these similar negative, like what you perceive as a negative experience when it's not really, like it's kind of just like now a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. So it's not to say be gullible or, open to everything. It's, so instead of being cynical, try being skeptical. This is a notable quote, and everything will be linked below. If cynicism were a pill, its warning label would list depression, heart disease, and isolation. In other words, it'd be a poison. So why do so many of us swallow it? One reason is that many people think cynicism comes with another more positive side effect, intelligence. So it does not. The thing is when it comes to emotional intelligence, being cynical shows the same amount of emotional intelligence as toxic optimists. So the people who are like, everything's fine, everything's going to work out, it's fine and dandy, and if we just ignore it, it'll go away. That actually shows the same amount of emotional intelligence as like people who are cynical. Because the thing is emotional intelligence is a bell chart. So you have the toxic optimists on one side, then you have the cynics who are like, nothing is going to work out. Nothing, it doesn't matter how much effort or time we put in, right? It sucks like that. Cynics really are in the same boat as people who are like, la-di-da-di-da, everything will be fine. So be skeptical, right? And that's where you use discernment. And I will talk about the importance of information. So this is a behavioral scientist. I'm reading this article. When I describe cynics, you might conjure up a certain type of person. The toxic, smirking, misanthrope, oozing contempt, but they are not a fixed category. Cynicism is a spectrum. We all have cynical moments, or in my case, cynical years. The question is why so many of us end here even if it hurts. Yeah, if cynicism were a pill, its warning label would list depression, heart disease, and isolation. In other words, it'd be poison. So why do many of us swallow it? So the thing is again, a lot of emotions have like certain sensory components. And so cynicism is linked to disgust if it's a poison, right? This is interesting that he says it's a pill that we would swallow because that would be its visceral disgust. Yeah, so it's like, well, actually then, yeah, it kills you. So That's interesting. It doesn't kill other people. It literally kills you. And that's why they mention depression, heart disease, and isolation. When someone acts kindly, he suspects ulterior motives. Ben thinks most people are altruistic and would not lie, cheat, or steal. He believes people act selflessly out of kindness. Yeah, there's two individuals. So yeah. Most people also think cynics are socially smart, able to slice through insincerity and dig out the truth. In one study, people read about a company where new employees had lied to get their jobs. Readers were asked to assign one of two managers, Sue or Colleen, to handle interviews. Both were equally competent, but Sue views people very positively, and her default expectation is that everyone she meets is basically trustworthy. Colleen begs to differ. She thinks people will try to get away with everything they can. 85% chose Colleen as the new interviewer, confident she'd be better at spotting liars. More than a century ago, the writer George Bernard Shaw quipped that the power of accurate observation is commonly called cynicism by those who haven't got it. People who count on Andy's and Colleen's agree. A sucker is born every minute, but if you circle life's block enough times, you learn not to trust everyone and eventually to trust no one. So this guy has met a bunch of self-proclaimed cynics. In study after study, most people fail to realize how generous, trustworthy, and open-minded others really are. The average person underestimates the average person, and that is so true. I think the thing is like, for example, when I was raised in my really shitty house, and I just hid all the time, I thought that I could read people so fucking well. Like, I was like, oh, I know when someone's evil. I know, when someone has negative intentions. But the thing is I could only spot, like, I had a heightened ability to spot bad people or untrustworthy people. But the thing is, when it comes to discernment, it's not just being able to spot, like, quickly the bad people, quote unquote. If you have no ability to spot, good people, or potentially, like, friends, or, your community, or like your tribe, all this stuff, the village, right? Then are you really super perceptive? If you can only see the negative in people, are you actually seeing the full picture of someone? Are you really as perceptive as you think? It really is like if someone only saw the positive qualities in someone and they didn't see any of the negative at all. So you only see the negative and you see none of the positive. And now both of these two groups are missing out on, individuals. Because if you flatten them to, oh, you only have negative qualities or only have good qualities, think about all of us. We all have negative and good qualities, but I mean, most of us exist within the gray. We're not morally perfect, nor should we. And so if you think you're in the gray, just imagine how many other people you're missing, if you only see the completely negative or positive. So if you're cynical, I need to stress this. I will fight with people in the comments. Cynical is not the same thing as realistic. It is not. Cynics are pessimists. Closer to, right? Realistic people are skeptical, right? And that involves discernment, which is the difference between paranoia and discernment is the amount of information you know, okay? So, I'll get to that. Someone's going to be like, well, I have to be. You don't. You could be, you don't have to be cynical at all. It's like saying you have to be a toxic optimist. If you're like, I'm realistic, then that's great. And if you're like, I'm realistic because the shit I've been through, that's great. Yeah, that's great. So then we're going to talk about propensity to trust and risk aversion, and there's differential roles in the trust process. So trust is a process, like I said, and this is just me wrapping this up in like talking about risk, because risk is inherently linked to trust. To trust someone, you're going to be in like different risky situations because life is unpredictable. It's like, who would you reasonably trust in this specific context, right? And so I'm going to explain like how they kind of influence each other. So trust the process, right? Trust is a process. It's like continuous. It's ongoing if you'd like to maintain this relationship. If someone says that they're trustworthy and they do one trustworthy thing, and then for the rest of the time you guys are friends or like, family, and they don't do anything, like their words do not continue to match their actions throughout the duration of your relationship, then they are not trustworthy anymore, okay? Okay, so propensity to trust, which is in this article, it's by Science Direct, is related to initial perceptions and behaviors, whereas risk aversion was related to change over time. So risk aversion is going to be change over time as a rate, and that's going to be like slope. So when I did talk about invisible labor in the last episode, a lot of times when someone is trying to take advantage of you, they're going to focus on one singular event. However, the thing is when you're looking at risk, right? Or like you're looking at the cost, and this is a service, right? You want to keep it as a frequency, okay? And I did also talk about this on my Instagram story. I did not quite integrate it into here, but I talk about symbolic logic. There's this thing when you're arguing where people try to negate a quantity, right? And so the thing is negating a quantity in an argument is you should be very cautious. Proceed with caution, because the thing is you'll kind of lose your argument almost every time if you're not exactly 100% correct. So if I say you never wash the dishes, and someone has washed the dishes even just one time, they can bring up that one time and the entire argument falls apart. Even if you're like, no, but all these other times, yeah, but what you said is that you never wash the dishes, okay? Or you tell someone, you always park in my spot, right, when I ask you not to, and they have one time where they didn't, right? They can, again, break your argument. So be very careful when you're arguing with people, when you're negating a quantity. Always means 100%. If it's not 100% verifiably, do not say always. Now, if you say never, right, make sure the only time you say never is when there's a 0% chance or this has never happened in the past. I don't care if you're like, they did it once, but I'm using the term always or not. Then have fun losing that argument. If someone is talking about a frequency, right, and invisible labor is always high frequency tasks, right, things that are highly repetitive, you're cleaning something or you're maintaining something, right, it's a service that you're maintaining a constant image, and you're talking about the frequency at which you perform or they do not perform something. Use frequency terms like rarely, often, sometimes, more times than not, right? Nothing. I just kissed this again. If you use always or never, right, your argument could easily fall apart. So if you're going to be arguing that you do something frequently or they do not do something frequently, if you want, right, to feel validated, because the thing is if they say, I have done the dishes just once, your argument falls apart and you also feel invalidated, right? Your feelings are being invalidated. However, if you say, I wash the dishes most of the time, they have to actually validate what you're saying. They're like, yeah, but I've done it some of the times. Now, it doesn't matter if they accept the entire argument. They literally validated your claim, right? They validated your truth, even if that was, coming through, and they're like, okay, yeah, but I've done this, like last Saturday I did it. They still, in this point in the argument, had to validate your truth, and that will register in your brain. It'll start to ungaslight you. So as soon as you get out of like 100%, 0%, and you use the corresponding frequency word for how often you do or they don't do something, right? That's when someone is going to inadvertently validate how you're feeling, because now they don't have to negate 100% or 0, right? They have to, okay, yeah, but the yeah will save you mentally in this moment, trust me. Okay, and so the thing is risk and risk aversion is a frequency. So yeah, propensity to trust, risk aversion. So trust has been delineated into a process comprised of beliefs, intentions, behaviors. Beliefs, personality, perceptions of the other, right? Intentions, behaviors, right? And so I've said this before. This is covered in so many books. To trust someone, beliefs, intentions, behaviors must be aligned. Actions must match words. Intentions, you don't mean to do something, and that's, you got to really look if they genuinely, truly did mean that or not. But trust necessitates a willingness to assume risk. Indeed, results from a meta-analysis revealed both propensity to trust and risk aversion were related to pro-social behaviors in uncertain interactions. Trust is a willingness to be vulnerable to another with the expectation of positive outcome, regardless of being able to monitor the reference, which entails vulnerability and risk. So again, like division of cognitive labor, in order to trust this person, you need to be like, you're taking care of this, and I don't want to monitor you. I'm not going to micromanage you because that's not trusting, right? If you have to micromanage them, it's not trusting, okay? Trust is a temporal process consisting of trusting beliefs, intentions, and risk-taking behaviors. Trustworthy perceptions is comprised of 3 factors: ability, based on skills, knowledge, and or expertise. So again, for the accessibility part of this, it doesn't necessarily have to be like ability to like physically lift something. You could also depend on someone for knowledge and expertise, or just like skills that don't involve physical ability to like perform a task, like a tangible task. Yes. There's also benevolence. So a trustworthy perception comprised of 3 factors: ability, benevolence. Benevolence is belief the trustee has the truster's best interest at heart and will take care to ensure the truster is supported. Do you believe that this person has your best interest at heart? And the thing is you can, I talk so much about decentering. You can be addicted to people, right? And you can be addicted to validation. And you have to, I need you to like set aside if you like, does this person have your best interest at heart? I know they're not alcohol, but they can be addictive. And it's like, is this good for you? And then integrity, belief that the trustee will behave in an ethical, fair, and honest manner and whose values are aligned with the truster's values. And so that's why I also recommended writing a constitution, especially if you were raised in a house where there was almost no structure. Because a lot of us really are working from scratch here, so I would write your own personal constitution. Whereas, so trustworthiness perceptions are context dependent. Individual differences of the truster are relatively stable within individual and across situations. These trusting beliefs influence the truster's willingness to be vulnerable, which influences risk-taking behaviors. And then there's personality influences and other pro-social behaviors. The 4 affordances in meta-analysis are possibility for exploitation, possibility for reciprocity, temporal conflict, dependence under uncertainty. And possibility for exploitation is defined as characterized by single interactions with low asymmetrical dependence, either as the final move in a series of interactions or during a simultaneous interaction. Okay? Exploitation is a single interaction. So if someone's like, oh, I've treated you mainly good. Like exploitation can be a one-off event. You can exploit someone one time. So this is a frequency. It's one data point within a frequency. It still will register as exploitation and possibility for exploitation. It must be factored in. Possibility for reciprocity. It occurs during repeated interactions when the partner is reacting to another person. So reciprocity is a rhythm that must be established, right? Like you must both be on the same like rhythm. And so that's something continuous. So exploitation, singular. Reciprocity, continuous. Temporal conflict, repeated interaction with the truster where the truster is the first person to trust. Okay? So if you're always the first person to initiate, oh, I trust you, right? Or like, I'm telling you to do this. I trust you to do this. That is a temporal conflict, right? Because you guys both need to like play the tune. If you're always the one, all right, here's the key, beat, pitch, here we go, right? You're leading. You're taking on a majority of cognitive load. You want to share this, right? You are not the conductor. Neither of you are the conductor in this situation. You are both members of the orchestra. I mean, you can switch off being the conductor, but it needs to be equal switching of conductor position, okay? For the most part, in a relationship, you guys are both playing an instrument and you need to be on the same page. If someone is directing the other person, right? Okay, and then dependence under uncertainty, characterized by low power of the truster and either a simultaneous choice or sequential action where the truster is the first person to trust. So dependence under uncertainty. If you're the first person to trust, first person to keep starting the music, and this person has more power than you, like I mentioned in the previous episode, right? Division of cognitive labor. If you're constantly managing someone else's thoughts and their emotions, but they're the one bossing you around, right? That would be like hiring someone and then they boss you around. That they have all the power here. They're probably the boss's kid. There's probably some degree of privilege there in which they can do that. So who has the power of this situation? That's dependence under uncertainty. Anyway, let's keep going. There's also, they talk about the importance of agreeableness. People who are more agreeable tend to be more trusting, and people who disagree more. But this does enter, I'm going to just like kind of link this below. the Big Five personality trait quiz. The thing is there's some decent science to that, but there's also some sketchy. Whenever it comes to a personality quiz, you kind of proceed with a grain of salt. I do like taking personality quizzes, just because it gives me like some things to look out for where like I don't, follow it explicitly, but if I keep seeing repeated words pop up to describe my behavior, I do like to write those down because it is nice to have like objectively, this is what I'm perceiving or this is what I'm gathering about you, right? If I'm answering honestly, truthfully, and, it keeps popping up on every quiz I take that I'm resilient or adaptable, good conversationalist, like then those three things are probably more solid. And so it helps me kind of, like I said in the beginning, outline what self is or like what constitutes self, my identity. Well, Sarah Schauer is not just, a lesbian or autistic or an alcoholic. Sarah Schauer is also, pretty agreeable or, pretty flexible, and it can adapt in a situation. You can trust that Sarah will be resourceful. And this is what I really love about like my different audiences that I have. My lesbian and my substance user or people with addiction issues who follow me for help, right? Lesbians and people with substance issues, incredibly resourceful. If I was going to designate a task, right? And the thing is again, you could, accidentally lean on someone who's too good at something. But if you need shit done and if you need something acquired, right? I can trust lesbians will get that shit done. If I need something acquired or made, I can trust that my substance user crew will always show up. Because the thing is there's something called addict mentality, and a lot of people like when you're addicted to something, you'll do damn near anything, right? And that's a good and a bad thing. There's silver linings everywhere, but like example, if I'm an alcoholic, right, and one bar closes, most people be like, "Aw, damn." But people with addiction issues, you're gonna find another bar, even if it means you have to go outside of town, even if it means you have to make it, right? And so you get shit done. You're resourceful, and then like when I say like taking a personality quiz, if you want to discover like more self, it's not prescription, like you're not prescribed these things. It describes you, it just kind of accompanies you. It builds upon, right? So you have like your boundaries, your rules, your principles, like your constitution is kind of like your grounding boundaries. And then these, sentimental qualities like build, right? Like I said, like the art, resourcefulness or like adaptability. I feel like I can talk to almost anyone. I can build up different relationships. I feel like I can connect with a lot of people. I did move around a lot growing up. And so, first impressions and being able to talk to anyone is a skill that you must absolutely have because you cannot assume a past or a future with them. You only have this moment, so make it give it all you got, right? That's why I really enjoy great conversations. So yeah, agreeableness, you don't have to be agreeable. I did touch on this with, moderate amount of agreeableness, right? Don't be contrarian. Everyone hates a contrarian. God, it's like they're always the people who just negate everything you've ever said. They could be like, yeah, no, I'm having a really hard time with my husband. And you're like, that sounds like pretty rough. And they're like, it's not rough. I'm having a hard time with my husband, but I wouldn't describe it as, they're always just disagreeing. So you don't have to be super agreeable, but don't be a contrarian. I could make a full bitch fest about them. But yeah, these I do have, and I will link below, 12 proven trust building exercises to repair relationships of all type. Now this is to the point of repair, but you can also do this as preventative measures. I would, the thing is, I was going to say much like Alzheimer's. If you're starting to notice, then it's probably gotten bad. So preventative measures. So these are like 12 proven trust building exercises to repair relationships of all types. It's, trust is the cornerstone of a healthy and successful relationship, etc. So forth. Trust is intrinsically linked to positive mental health. And it's, when it's compromised or shattered, it can lead to a host of negative emotions such as anxiety, stress, or even depression. Welcome. So here's some examples, and these are good. You can do this with just do these with your friends or one friend. Share vulnerabilities. Sharing vulnerabilities involves opening up about your fears, insecurities, or past experiences with another person. By exposing your own vulnerabilities, you demonstrate trust in the other person's ability to empathize and support you. This exercise allows both individuals to connect on a deeper level as it fosters a safe and non-judgmental space for sharing personal struggles and concerns. This is especially important to do with friends. If you were raised in a home where whenever you told your parents something, they like acted like it was like gossip, and they were like, yeah, Sarah just started her period and she bled through her pants. Isn't that so hilarious? Meanwhile, you're 13 years old and this is your secret. And it's like, so you're taught that you can't be vulnerable. And so how can you trust anyone? So just like practicing this with someone, you're skeptical, right? You're realistic with, you're like, I could realistically probably trust this person, run it by them. It's like share vulnerabilities and then, keep it small, right? Genuinely apologize. A lot of us were not apologized to as, I actually can't think of one time where my parents apologized to me for their actions. The only time my mother has ever apologized to me was for someone else's. This is interesting. Okay, so I worked at this KOA. I worked at this campground, and the lady running it, I don't think she liked me, but like I had to bring my backpack inside from class because my car at the time, the doors didn't lock. And so she always saw me bringing my backpack in, and she was like, you're doing your homework in here. And I was like, I'm not. You guys literally have cameras behind the desk. I have to bring my backpack in because I work at a campground and my car doors don't lock and people are literally coming in and out all the time. And then someone was selling puppies on Facebook. It was my coworker. And she was like, Sarah, are you doing this? I was like, do I own a dog breeding farm? No. Like, also, again, may I say, cameras behind the front desk. You can see who's on Facebook and who's not. And there was just like so many things where this like lady was picking on me. And then when she fired me, she pulled me into the front office and she called everyone who worked there to watch me get fired. And she basically like berated me and listed all these ways that I was bad. And I like left crying and I called my mom, and my mom was like, this was weird. Was weird. I was like, Mom, this lady just basically like humiliated me and all this like stuff. And she's like, Sarah, come home and take my credit card and go buy yourself something nice. And I was like, pause. This has never happened my entire life. My parents do this thing of where they buy us nice stuff, but not the essentials. Anyway, okay. So, sorry. For my mom to say that, I was like, what? And then I realized, the reason why she's actually upset. And she's like, she said, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Only time I've ever like remember like conscious like that came out of her mouth is it's because someone else did something to me, right? It wasn't because she had hurt me. She couldn't, because then she'd have to admit, but she was like, oh, that's objectively awful, right? Someone else did something to you, right? And then so she was like, and I did get her credit card. Oh, I did. And I bought a shit ton of purses. But like, sorry, I should have bought some other stuff, but it was, yeah. A lot of us have not heard a genuine apology, and a lot of us have not genuinely apologized to ourselves. Again, like a lot of people assume that just taking time away from someone is an apology. We also assume that for ourselves. Well, like we assume, we betray ourselves, we abandon ourselves, we talk negatively to ourselves, and we just let time pass. No, you do need to apologize to yourself, right? Hey, I totally abandoned myself for that other person, right? And I'm not going to do that again. I'm sorry. Like I'm supposed to be reparenting myself. I'm sorry. And to show me, that I mean it, right? I'm going to do better. Again, I've already talked about apologies, purgation, all this stuff, right? Apologizing to yourself is like moral hygiene. You should do it pretty often. You should check in with yourself pretty often. The reason why you don't apologize or forgive yourself, right, and you let shit build up for years is because literally no one ever apologized. They let shit build up, and now you're like kind of just doing that yourself, right? So just clean out that buildup, like try to do it like ritualistically, almost like a shower, right? And then have a trust talk. A trust talk involves engaging in a candid and open conversation about trust itself. That is good. Like this is what we're doing here. We're talking about like how we all literally understand trust. Because the thing is some people have different terms, cultural understanding, like nuances, things that they need to say. If you do have like more like accessibility needs, or like if you have like conditions, or like, hey, availability, right? Like you do need to have like okay, so I want to establish trust, but this is realistically what it's going to look like, right? Structure and expression, work value, work quote unquote value, and then sentimental value. And then this will be what trustworthiness as a whole holistically looks like coming from me, and what I'd like it to look like coming from you. Or can you communicate what trustworthiness looks like for you? So we're on the same page, right? So you make sure you're working off the same definition. Okay. And then practice mindfulness together. Attention Beyond Mindfulness by Gay Watson. I need you to get that. If you like science, also if you like Buddhism, if you like learning about, like, that is going to be a hybrid of like science and Buddhism. And now I'm going to get into Taoism is so cool. It's like, I was talking about this in my Instagram stories. If you're going to do any sort of cultural study that has to do with anything spiritual, and the thing is this is a rough translation. Anything spiritual mainly kind of pertains to body and awareness, right? Where soul is like consciousness and inherited knowledge, right? And then spirit is more like a force that pushes and pulls and does kind of enter more the realm of awareness. So if you're going to do anything spiritual related, which is usually going to refer, they can cross. Spirit, you're going to want to research a culture's poetry beforehand, because poetry is emotion distilled, right? And so it's kind of like getting, the beat of a culture, right? Getting the pitch, getting all these different things, so that when you read the text, right, which has no intonation, no rhythm, no accents, no dialects, right? I mean, you can sometimes see when someone uses an accent or like misspells something, not misspells, but spells something different. Like it's just poetry is how you kind of work them together so you understand their emotions and what they're saying, and you get like a fuller, richer view of what this culture is trying to communicate. Attention Beyond Mindfulness by Gay Watson. And then doing a meaningful activity together, engaging in a meaningful activity such as volunteering for a cause both individuals care about, allows them to bond over shared values and experiences. This shared endeavor builds trust by demonstrating commitment to a common goal and fostering a sense of unity. Yes, so meaningful, like where the actions match your words, right? We both believe that it's completely necessary to help out like our local community whenever we can, right? And you go to a soup kitchen and you don't have to drag them, right? Or, you go to donate like books, or you go to donate school supplies, you don't have to drag them. They don't do it begrudgingly, right? You do it together. Or, I know there's a bunch of school like supplies drives coming up and like helping like people hand out like school supplies. If you do it begrudgingly, then it's whatever. Play games that encourage honesty, truth or dare, 21 questions. Ugh. That's going to quickly devolve into, God, you remember like sexting as a teenager? I'm sorry. This just immediately, like, it's like, but it wasn't even sexting. It was getting to know, maybe this was a straight thing. I don't know if this still goes on. But like, it's like, 21 questions. What's your favorite color? Show me your boobs. Be honest. Are your boobs lopsided? It's like, God. So, but like, I love any, playing games. And this will be linked below. Go to an escape room. The thing is you're like, that doesn't sound like a good idea. It is. Giving you guys controlled stress, controlled risk, right, will show people's true colors. That's why, like, if you really want to see family dynamics, like if you're like, dating someone and you want to see how the person you're dating and their family like kind of interact in general, suggest a game of Monopoly. And then watch it. That is going to be, they're going to immediately go back to how they normally interact with each other, and you're like, interesting. So yeah, I'm going to link this below. It's, trust building exercises. I do strongly recommend trust building exercises. You're like, it's not cringe. Cringe is to be free. But the thing is trust building exercise, trust is a skill, right? It's continuous. So like I said with the previous episodes, to build a skill, you really got to practice. You like can't just say I'm trustworthy and then never be trustworthy ever again. It's like saying I'm the best soccer player ever lived. Well, have you been practicing? No. Well, I doubt that's still true. Okay. And then I also, when it comes to, I was going to talk about, just general record keeping of like, if you're kind of not sure if you trust someone in your life, or someone's being iffy, I did also want to link 5 creative bullet journal mood tracker ideas. You can track your own mood and theirs, and it's not to say like, oh, track their every mood, but like, to see like risk and trustworthiness that is going to be a frequency. So just being able to like see the different colors and like how they fluctuate. If something starts off good and something is consistently going into the negative, you can see like a visual guide. And so you're kind of like, again, like validated, and you see like how your mood is being affected by like their mood. Right. And so then you can kind of see the correlation or between the different factors, the data in the set, and yes. So those 2 things will be linked below. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I did do like a not so brief rundown, but this has been a long episode, and I know that people refuse to listen to the first 2. But and then there's also people who just listened all the way through. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate this every single time. I swear to God, I'm done with trust. You're gonna if I talk about trust in another episode, then I'm gonna break your trust, because I'm gonna be like, you're gonna be like, Sarah, you said that, but no. It's just nice to get like a thorough overview of everything, how it all comes together, right? And so, like I said with, you know what, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, please, and then rate me 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any place you get your podcasts. Write a review. Also, be sure to follow me on Substack, which is Sarah Schauer. That'll be linked. When I do post about my book club, it'll be on there, and on Instagram stories. Instagram stories is like my shit. Like I those people like see me through everything, because I always, you know what, you've heard it all before. But thank you guys so much for listening, for watching. Also, if you're watching this and you're like, holy crap, Sarah, you have a half up, half down hairstyle, and that looks incredible. I know, right? I'm so serious. I did not know that I was going to be a half up, half down type of person, but it looks so cute. I thought my forehead would have been too big, but no, it works. And some of you are going to be like, Sarah, I'm watching on YouTube. It's still huge. I'll be like, okay, but it looks cohesive. Guys, go on YouTube, subscribe, and look at my hair and tell me it looks great. But thank you so much, and I will talk to you next Wednesday. Bye.